I'm sure you'll find something good. Some dumb thing we were doing or saying. Do the double sip?
Wait, don't do it again. Hey, this is Maggie,
And this is James,
and you're listening to Directors on Tap.
the podcast where we sit down weekly to discuss film industry news, new favorites, and what we're watching.
Today, we're talking about our favorite ending scenes. Okay, so today we're talking about the ending scenes, and we should just warn you before watching or listening to this episode that there will definitely be spoilers because we are talking about the ending of these movies, which often reveals a lot about the story. So if you don't want to hear certain spoilers, skip ahead.
Yeah,
There's definitely going to be spoilers.
All right. So, Max, what was your first pick?
My first one was The Dark Knight Rises.
Ooh, of course. And
That was the first one I picked. Like, that was immediate.
I had a feeling that'd be one of your picks.
Yeah, and the ending wraps up the trilogy so well, and the entire movie ties up a lot of loose ends. I think the cinematography and direction are amazing in this. I think the scene is about, I guess is it 2 scenes? I guess it's 2 scenes. But it's in just under like 6 minutes, Nolan ties up relationships, story points, and some of which have been in question since the beginning of the trilogy. And so just to like premise it, we know at the end that Batman flies the bomb out of the city, and beforehand they're under the bridge with Gordon, Selina, and Fox. And as Batman's like tying the cable to the bomb, Selina says something about the autopilot, and Batman's like, no autopilot. And this basically tells us that he can't eject and be in the clear of the blast radius once he flies it out over the water. And basically sacrifices himself. And then we get the talk with Gordon while he's getting ready to take off, and Batman tells him who he really is by calling back to the moment they shared in Batman Begins, where he's comforting him at the police station after his parents' death.
Right, but shouldn't the people know the hero who saved them? A hero can be anyone, even a man doing something as simple and reassuring as putting a coat around a young boy's shoulders to let him know the world hadn't ended. Bruce Wayne.
Which,
go.
go.
The way he says it, like the way he mentioned, I love the way the lines that he says it with, where he's talking about something like he says like the things like it can make when the world seems like it's ending or whatever, just like even the simplest actions.
Yeah,
can make
he's
it all
like
better.
as putting a coat around a young boy's shoulder, so I'm just
I love that.
the world's not gonna end or something like that.
Yeah, he says something as simple
yeah.
as putting your jacket around a boy's shoulder, and then they do they have a little flashback? I can't remember.
Yeah, they flash back to the police station.
Yeah, and I think we saw that in the first movie.
Yeah.
Also, we saw that moment, and then when he's going off, then like Gordon realizes he's like Bruce, and it's like whoa.
Yeah, he's like Bruce Wayne. And so he ends up flying the bomb out over the water, and it's implied that he dies. And I just remember being so upset in the theater. I was like crying. I was like, nah, this isn't happening.
Well, it
and what?
It's like, well, it wasn't.
Yeah. Well,
There's the
so
twist.
and to like make it even more clear, Nolan was just trying to press it that he did die. Like there was no, like obviously he doesn't die in the end, but he he doesn't just jump to that. He's trying to like press it by like having the funeral with his grave next to his parents, and Alfred says like, I failed you, which is heartbreaking. That one made me cry for sure.
And the statue.
Yeah, and then that's what was next.
Oh, sorry.
And the ceremony with Batman's statue, and Gordon's just like looking up at it, knowing who he really is.
Mm-hmm.
And then what else? We get the Wayne Manor story tied up with how like that whole thing was kind of coming down, but then it becomes the home for orphans.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a cut to Fox asking the technicians what he could have done to fix the bat, and they say that the autopilot was fixed 6 months ago by Bruce. And so then we realize like he's alive, and so that kind of gets tied up, but then there's like still the unresolved relationship with Alfred and Selina. So then we see Alfred at the cafe, and they like linger on a few shots before they cut back to Alfred.
He's on vacation.
Yeah,
We
he's
forgot to
on
mention that.
vacation.
In France, I think.
Yeah.
We talked about the scene in
But
a previous
you don't know
episode, if
that
you guys have
yet.
seen
That's
it.
what I was gonna say.
Oh, sorry. So yeah.
You keep doing that.
All right. Keep going.
And so they like linger on a few shots before like Alfred looks up, and he kind of takes like a double look. Like he kind of looks up and he's like, and they cut to Bruce and Selina across the way at another table. And they kind of like, they look at each other. Bruce nods at him, and then Alfred nods back. And Bruce like Bruce nods at him. Then it cuts to Alfred. Alfred nods, and then it cuts back to Bruce, and he like kind of just lowers his head and looks down, like, yep, and just like sits with that for a moment. And it's just like a perfect ending. Like the direction in this specific sequence at the end is amazing. Just like the head nod of Alfred, Bruce sitting with it for a brief moment, super satisfying. And then
the fact that the whole thing's a callback to earlier.
Yeah. Where they're having the it's in the hallway where Bruce is like going up the stairs, and then Alfred's like, this is the last thing I'll do for you, is to was it something with the hard drive or flash drive or something, and he's like, this is the last thing I'll do, and then I have to go because I can't see you like do this to yourself anymore. And then he like talks about this fantasy that he would have where he sees him across the way at the cafe and just knows that he's like happy. So then yeah, at the end that is what happens, so it's pretty satisfying.
Extremely super satisfying.
The last thing I was going to add is that, you know, when Blake picks up the bag from Wayne's building and the receptionist says you should use your full name, Robin. And so I just like love that they added that little thing in there.
It's so cheesy, but it's satisfying.
Yeah.
It's like,
great.
Whoa. Yeah. Because it definitely starts straddling the line of getting a bit cheesy, but it does it super well.
They didn't
that it doesn't
like take
feel
it
cheesy.
too far into it. It was pretty short.
Yeah, because like if it wasn't done so well, it would have definitely felt 100% cheese. But they do it well enough that you're still emotionally invested in it and not just like, that's dumb.
Yeah,
like,
and they also, the fact that, because there's multiple callbacks going on during this, like they're cutting back and forth between, they're going from like the home becoming the orphanage, and then they're cutting back to Blake picking up his bag, then they're doing the cafe. So like they kind of had to keep it short, but I'm glad that they didn't like linger too much on that. The pacing was really good with all the things that they were calling back to.
Yes, extremely well paced. With all the things that they're juggling. That's impressive, because that'd be really easy to screw up, and a lot of directors do screw it up when they're juggling
seriously,
that much.
it could have easily, things could have gotten like breezed over or
bloated.
Yeah, bloated. So it was perfect.
Mm-hmm. Or it could have just felt disconnected too if they just didn't do a good job transitioning between them all. But it didn't feel like we were jumping around. It felt like a wrap up because it was a really well done wrap up.
Yeah. And that's also what the dialogue too. Like the dialogue was great.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Is that all we got to say about that one?
Yep.
All right. My first pick for the ending is from 1972, The Godfather. And have you seen the ending scene?
Well, you're gonna hate me now. I put that on here because I haven't seen it, but I have seen the ending.
All right, fair.
And I almost put it on here because I was like, damn, that's a really good ending, but I don't want to because I haven't seen it.
Have you seen the opening scene?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get?
I don't remember it. I've seen it. I saw it like 2 years ago.
Okay, because I was gonna say the ending's very closely related to the opening.
I just like the framing and like the whole idea. Anyways, just go. I almost had it on here, but.
All right. Well, okay. So what's basically happening is Michael's moving into his new house, and he's in his office. It's very darkly lit, just like his father Vito's office is in the beginning of the film. And Michael's sister comes in, and she's hysterical, and she starts yelling at him like, all right, spoiler, major spoiler. So if you don't want the ending of The Godfather spoiled for you, skip this. Basically,
do I not want to hear this? It's fine.
Oh boy. Okay. So Michael had his brother-in-law murdered. And so his sister's coming in hysterical about this. And it wasn't out of the blue. Like his brother-in-law was abusive. So it wasn't like he just had him murdered because he didn't like him. He was a pretty bad dude. But obviously his sister didn't appreciate him murdering her husband, especially after they just had a newborn child, to which Michael is the godfather of. Hence the title of the film. But so she's like, you heartless bastard. Like, how could you? Like, you were our child's godfather. You're supposed to, like, now he's gonna grow up like without a father and all this.
All the time he knew he was gonna kill him. And you stood godfather to our baby. You lousy, cold-hearted bastard. I don't know how many men he had killed with the collar. Read the papers, read the papers. That's your husband. That's your husband.
And Michael's just very cold about it. He tries to comfort her, like he hugs her and stuff, but he's still like, you can tell he does not care at all. And then eventually he has her taken out of her office. And Michael's wife, Kay, is watching it. And so it's just quiet now after they get his sister out of his office and everything. And she's just asking him, she's like, is it true? Like, did you kill him? And he tells her, like, don't ask about my business. And then she keeps pressing him and he's like, don't ask about my business. And so eventually he gives in. He's like, all right, this one time I'll let you ask about my business. And then so she asks him and he says, no, I didn't do it. And so he lies to her. Mm-hmm. And then so she's like, all right. So she goes to get him a drink. She's like, all right, obviously he probably feels pretty bad then if he didn't do it, that his sister thinks he did. So she goes to get him a drink. She walks outside and then we see him talking with other people in his office. There's the great framing where she's separated from him, standing down through the hallway. We're looking in through the door. And then she starts to realize, like, he lied to me. And then we get to a sort of close up of the doorway, and then the door's shut. And it's like that functions as our sort of wipe to black.
Don Corleone.
And it's so beautiful. And one of my favorite things about this is how well it contrasts the opening scene of Vito in his office. We can start off with just how they set it up so that you'll notice the contrast, is that Michael's office is very visually similar to Vito's, even though he's in a different house. But then the fact that he's in a different house, because it's like a completely different Godfather, basically. He handles things so different from his father and so much worse than his father does. Where, new house, things are completely different, even though he's visually trying to be like his father, having the same dark type of office. But in the opening scene of The Godfather, we have Vito is being begged by someone to kill a stranger for abusing their daughter, for beating her up. And Vito says, he's like, all right, we'll beat him up, we'll rough him up. But he's like, I can't kill him. That's disproportionate to, he's like, he didn't kill anyone. We're not going to kill him. We're just going to beat him up too, so that he's, teach him a lesson. And then the contrast of Vito has such a strong sense of proportionate justice, where he's like, this guy was like begging him to have this dude killed. And he's like, I can't kill him. He's like, that's not just. He's like, we'll really rough him up, but we can't kill him. Versus Michael, with the disproportionate response of murdering his father-in-law, leaving his nephew without a father, not even feeling all that. It wasn't even asked to. And then when his sister comes to him, completely torn up by it, it's a complete opposite. He murders someone without being asked in a disproportionate way, as opposed to refusing to kill someone in a disproportionate way. And instead of it being a stranger, he actually ends up killing a family member too, which makes it even worse. And that coupled with, gotta check my notes real quick. I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. The whole "don't ask me about my business" thing, where Michael is adamant, where he's trying to separate his family and his business, where Vito didn't, because he's like, well, the family is the business. He's like, you can't separate them. He's trying to be like, this is my business. Don't talk about it. This, you're my wife. Just be concerned about my family. And it's like, yeah, I am concerned about the family. You just had a member of our family murdered. And it's like, so clearly you can't separate the business and family. And that coupled with just the framing at the end of the total separation, and then that beautifully executed white to black, with the door shutting. Beautifully done. One of my favorite endings of all time. And I think that's all I have to say about it. Just that beautiful poetic opening and close parallel between Vito and his father, because that's sort of the whole story of the film is, or not Vito and the father, of Michael and his father Vito, because the whole story of the film is Michael failing to be like his father, basically. Well, becoming his father, but a worse version of his father.
Yeah, I literally almost put that on here. I think it's not fair for me to put it on here when I haven't seen it, but because I've seen the opening and ending, I already knew it was a good ending because of that contrast, and especially the framing. I love the framing of that. It's so good.
The cinematography. Yes. Sorry. No, you go.
No, I don't know.
Okay. I was going to say, just Coppola's sense of using light and framing together in that movie. I guess the cinematography in general. It's so elegant. And he does that in all his films. His lighting, the way he uses his lighting in conjunction with his cinematography and the framing, just having the characters surrounded by darkness. And then when, again, the door wipe, he lit it so that, they could have just had the door shut and cut to black, but that they lit it so that the door itself would be the black. He's amazing with lighting and framing in conjunction together. Coppola is amazing with. Yeah.
Didn't we have to, for our production class, we had to recreate one of those shots, I think, for our lighting project.
No, we did.
It was a screen grab.
We did another one of my picks, though.
Oh, is it the second one?
No, it's not the second one.
Oh, okay.
No. It's a different.
Wait, I could have sworn it was that shot of him in his chair. With the lighting,
I think we used that as an example, but the one we did was from a different film, because I remember the shot. I remember the character in the shot, because I think the shot is from the scene I picked.
I could have sworn it was okay. I'm pretty sure.
Maybe I'm remembering it wrong.
Godfather, but
maybe I have it switched where the example was.
It was something where the shadows were below and the lighting was coming from above, and you had to block it with flags so you could.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I
don't want to stay on that for too long.
Yeah, that's all right. Moving on.
Yeah. Okay. So my next pick is Inception.
All right, that's good. That I considered putting on my list. So tell us about the ending of
Considered.
Inception.
First the Dark Knight with your opening scene, now Inception.
Yep.
How dare you? So yeah, what's great about this ending, other than, you know, the obvious moment with the totem at the end, is that there's barely any dialogue in the scene. And it's so much more powerful because clearly Nolan wanted to focus on expressions, like motions and objects, instead of the dialogue. Which I thought was great, like a super great choice. Like, I think the dialogue would have taken away from the meaning with the totem at the end. And then there's the score from Hans Zimmer, who's my favorite
great.
composer. And which has like so much intensity at the beginning of the scene. And it's like big and bold, and then it gets very emotional and quiet at the end. I just the score for this is like genius. It's one of the best things ever. And one of my favorite parts of the scene is that Cobb tells himself throughout the movie that he can never look his kids in the eye without knowing that he's in his own reality. And at the end, they're both of his kids are sitting in the same position in the grass with the same outfits that we've seen them throughout the whole movie. And finally, like, they turn their head towards Cobb, and he sees their faces. And Nolan does like such a good job of planning those moments throughout the movie, and then calling back to them at the end. So things like that are super satisfying to see. And then it's also just like really touching to see that he finally gets to see his kids.
Look who's here.
And I think the choice of doing like the slow motion for them turning their heads, like the breakdown of the scores, makes it so much more emotional.
It heightens it very much.
Yeah, like and like the way they turn their heads, because they're literally in the same position that they've been in the whole movie. And then as they're like turning their heads, their like hair like flicks forward in slow motion, and they're like their smiles like become apparent on their faces. So yeah, definitely makes it way more emotional.
I wonder how many takes they got of that, because I'm sure they did a lot of takes.
Yeah, especially with like 4-year-olds. That's
he was like, I gotta get this good one.
Yeah, no, it was perfect. And from that, we pan over to him holding his kid, or from him holding his kids to the totem spinning on the table. And we're like dialing into it very slowly. And we like stay on it for longer than expected. And it has this like slight wobble before it cuts to black. And I remember being in the theater and everyone yelling out like, "Oh, like, are you kidding me?" So it's such a like unsatisfying yet satisfied ending. It's like, you're killing me, Nolan, but you're also a genius.
Golden.
Yeah.
That feeling of like what you said of everyone in the theater being like, I remember I had heard about that being the ending before I even saw it, and even anticipating it, and I was like, still like, damn. Like,
yeah. It's like you're like right up here, you're like, and then it's like, like, are you kidding?
You don't get to know.
Was that that wasn't the movie that we watched together, was it?
The other what?
Inception. Was that,
Yeah, we
or was
watched
that
that
Interstellar?
together. We
Oh,
watched
yeah.
Inception together. I don't think we've watched Interstellar together yet.
Yeah, wait, isn't that because you told me you hadn't seen the whole thing?
Yeah.
I still can't.
Oh no, I
believe
saw the
that.
whole thing. Inception. I hadn't seen the whole thing of.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were talking about. I'm a mess.
That's the movie we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot that you hadn't seen it. That's really disappointing.
Yeah.
I can't believe that, actually.
I had seen a lot of pieces of it. I just had never seen the whole thing in one go before.
How could you not, like, be so eager to see it? It's like every filmmaker's seen that movie.
Well, now I have. Hey, you haven't seen The Godfather, so you can't.
Okay,
talk.
but still, Inception, like, come on.
All right.
All right, that's
All right.
pretty much it.
Yeah. All right. So my next pick, I think you're going to be a little disappointed in me for going back to this.
Probably.
Is 2001. The ending.
You can
This
pick
is-
the same movie?
Oh, I have to.
That's not fair.
Nope, I
I
had
didn't
to.
do that.
Well, I had to. This ending just is okay. I can't describe this at all, so I'm gonna have to describe it, obviously. But everything I'm gonna say is about to be spoilery. So, in the last bit of this film, he's in the pod. The pod is now in this strange, vaguely reminiscent of some type of Rococo hotel, with light panels on the floor and the ceiling, and he sees himself outside of his own pod in the hotel. And then we cut to that version of him's point of view. And then from that point of view, he sees himself a little bit older in another one of the rooms. And we cut to that one's point of view. And he's a little bit older again, watching himself from outside where he was standing before. And now he's like eating dinner in this like weird hotel. And he's an old man now. And he drops something. Then we cut to that old man's point of view. And then as he goes to pick up what he dropped, he sees on the bed of the hotel himself like super old and bedridden. And then we cut to that version of himself's point of view, and we see him reach out, and we think he's reaching out to his past self. And then we cut and no, the monolith is now in the hotel room with him, and he's reaching out to the monolith. And then we start moving forwards and dollying in closer and closer to the monolith, and then it overtakes the screen. And now we're back in space. And then we start to see the Earth come into view, and the music's picking up. Oh, wait, no, I left out a thing. Okay. So before we pan into the monolith, we cut back to him again. And now he's like this glowing baby. He's been like reborn as like this glowing like energy child. And then we start moving into the monolith. And then we're back in space. We see the Earth come into view. And then, so we have the Earth on the right side of the screen. And then the baby in the orb is watching the Earth from the other side. And the music's picking up. And then it's like amazing. And it just ends with like the biggest like musical cue. And then it just goes to like, this film was written and directed by Stanley Kubrick. And now the reason why I like this, I know it sounds like madness because it is madness, and in context, it'll still be madness. So I like this scene a lot for aesthetic theory reasons, because I think it's the best example of using the medium of cinema as its own medium without reference to any storytelling devices that are more proper to other mediums. For example, what I mean by this is film being primarily a visual medium. Everything that's happening in this is something that you're seeing. You're not being told. There's no explanation given. You're just witnessing it. And that's something that you can't really do in any non-visual mediums. For example, the book version of 2001, that scene plays completely differently because the way it is in the film is not at all able to be written and be the same thing. It's sort of hard to describe, specifically because I'm trying to put it in a verbal medium right now of how the film differs. But it basically, yeah, it uses the medium of cinema as cinema without relying on any tropes more akin to literature like most films do, where they'll employ a lot of dialogue or literary callbacks and stuff. This is saying this is a visual medium. The whole point of this artistic expression is to show you things and to have you witness them. And that's what it's doing, where you don't even fully understand what's going on. You probably won't for the majority of time watching it, but you're seeing it and it's beautifully shot and it's taking you with you on a purely visual and auditory spectacle. And that's why I like it, just in terms of pure film theory.
Yeah, you're gonna hate me because are you saying it's just for the visual and not for the meaning?
No. The meaning is completely conveyed through the visuals. That's what I'm saying I like about it.
Yeah, but you said that you may not even understand it.
Yes.
Which is not what I...
Yeah. If you don't, that's the thing.
I don't like that.
No, if you don't understand it, you can watch it a few more times and understand it. You may get it the first time, you may not. It's just it's so beautifully shot that you may not even get it, because we're so used to, in movies, relying on literary tropes in order to understand what's happening, whether it's through a character explaining it or other non-visual cues to understand the scene. And this sort of just completely drops that. It basically says...
the way you were saying it, when you were saying purely visual, I was like, well, I disagree.
Well, it is purely visual, but it's purely visual storytelling. It doesn't use anything
I know,
that
it was a little confusing, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sure the way I worded it was very messy and a complete mess. But yeah, I guess like to contrast it with like The Godfather, my other pick, because that very much relies on the context of what's being said, and it's the visuals are reinforcing what's happening on screen rather than being the main point, versus this, the visuals on screen is the main point, conveying all the meaning, if that makes sense. Yeah, so that's what I got to say about 2001 with the ending. That and the scene immediately preceding it with the Stargate sequence, I love for just purely aesthetics. Yeah. So, what's your next pick, Mags?
My next one is Psycho.
All right. That was another one that almost made my list.
Really?
Yes.
Yet another one that I've picked and has almost made your list. That's so annoying. This is the third movie.
We're not having overlap. I think that's good.
That's good. Fine. No, this one was like kind of unexpected for me because I went back and watched the scene and then realized how good it was. Because I haven't seen it in a while. But the acting and direction is genius. It's so creepy and terrifying. And I think the ending scene has a lot to do with the scene before it. So, yeah, to premise it, before the scene at the police station, is it Lila? Is that how you say that?
I'm terrible with names. I don't
no,
know
it's Lila. I just didn't. There's different pronunciations of that, but that's Lila, right?
I think so. Like I said, I don't know.
Lila.
Yeah, I would assume Lila, but I don't know. Yeah.
Someone's gonna think I'm stupid for thinking there's another pronunciation, but I'm pretty sure there is. Anyways, she goes into the basement of Norman's house and taps on the shoulder of what looks to be Norman's mother. But she pulls away and the woman turns around and we see that it's just a corpse of the mother.
Pretty gruesome too for such an old
Yeah,
film.
It was really creepy. The first time I saw it, I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
And she's got an outfit on and a wig on. And as Lila backs away, a figure appears in the doorway, and it's Norman dressed in his mother's gown and a similar wig to the one on the corpse. and he runs in with a knife and is about to stab Lila before the investigator comes in and stops him. The way he walks in, he's like, ah!
Yeah.
And as he's getting taken down, he's like, you can tell he's possessed. Like, the way he's moving, he's got his mouth like wide open with this huge smile on his face, and he's like moving like this.
Yeah.
It's so creepy. And the thing I have to talk about in this scene is the lighting, because they achieved the idea they had with the shadows shifting back and forth by having Lila, like, she sees Norman walking in, and she's like flailing her hand, and she hits the light bulb that's hanging from the ceiling, and it's getting swung back and forth, and as it's swinging, it cuts back to her face, and so the shadow sweeps across her face from left to right, and then it cuts to the doorway, and that shadow's sweeping from left to right. So it's almost like revealing her facial expression, and it's also revealing the entrance. So the lighting was, I loved the choices there. And with the actual ending where Norman's at the police station is terrifying. Like, he sits in a chair in the interrogation room, and we're like slowly dialing into him, and he's got this like innocent look on his face as we hear like the voiceover of the mother, and his face changes from this like innocent look to this devious and threatening one as the mother's saying like, they're probably watching me, and then we see the fly on his hand, and that's an insert shot. So we like cut to the hand. The fly's like crawling around on his hand. Hand's not moving, like it's just completely still. And then we cut back to his face again, and the mother's saying, I have it written down, but I was trying to think what she says beforehand, which is something like, they'll see and they'll know, and they'll say, well, she wouldn't even harm a fly. And the look on Norman's face is like, I can't even describe it. Like, it's almost like, it kind of looks like he has, I'm sure it's from the shadows, but it looks like he has like black circles or at least like eyeliner on, but the way he's like going like this, it's so good. It's terrifying.
Watching, they'll see, and they'll know, and they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
And the mother's corpse from before is overlaid on his face and matches it. And this kind of shows that, one, the mother is obviously a part of him, because in the scene before we knew he was crazy, but we didn't know that the mother was taking over him. So, but in the end we see that the mother really is a part of him, and I think the overlay of her corpse really makes it apparent that she's fully taken over, and like they're not equals, they're not two halves, like it's just she's taken over. It's so good.
I love that. I love Hitchcock. So that and that ending, that final shot with the overlay flash right there.
That's so not the final shot, actually.
Oh wait, yeah, the final shot is the car.
Pulled, yeah, it's getting pulled out of the. Which I mean, I read a lot that a lot of people thought that was unnecessary, but I think I had a reason why I liked that. I can't remember now. There's something about how he didn't get away with it. Like there was some justification at the end.
I think it also just
Or not
I mean, this-
justification. What's the word?
justice. Is
Yeah,
that-
sorry, justice, not justification.
Yeah.
Not justification for his actions. I meant there's some justice that was asserted then.
Yeah, with them finding the car.
Yeah.
And it also, I feel like it wouldn't be as much of a Hitchcock ending if it didn't cut to the other thing. Because Hitchcock tends to end on those type of shots. For
Yeah.
example, I can't remember which film it is, but there's the one where he cuts away to the train going into a tunnel in another film. All right. My next pick is The Godfather Part 2.
I said that, and you said no, that wasn't one of yours.
No. You said, was that going to be my second pick? And I was like, no.
Okay, whatever.
Um,
Well, I
but-
definitely haven't seen it, so I'm not going to be saying anything about that.
yeah. All right. So this one's the whole Godfather Part 2 spends the whole film cutting back and forth between the past and the present. And the ending scene is not an exception to that. It starts off with Michael and his family, his brothers and his sister, all at the dinner table. And it's his father Vito's birthday. And they're waiting for him to get home so they can celebrate. And this scene sort of encapsulates all the character dynamics that we've seen play out in the previous two films and sort of adds greater depth to some of the things that have happened. For example, we find out that Sonny, who ends up being killed because of Sonny beating up his brother-in-law, who Michael eventually has killed. Sonny sort of aggravates that whole situation in the first film. And we see one of the reasons why, aside from his sister being abused, one of the reasons why he's extra pissed about it in the first film is we see in that scene that he actually introduced his sister to her future husband in that scene. So he's the whole reason why he was with her to begin with. We also see Fredo, the middle brother, when Michael says that he's joining the army, he's the only one to support him. And Fredo, whenever he tries to voice his opinion throughout the films or do anything on his own, he's immediately shut down and basically told no one cares, Fredo, just do what you're told. And that's exactly what happens here. He's like, I think that's great, Michael, that you've joined the Marines. And then Sonny's immediately just like, don't support him, or and so we see all these little character dynamics encapsulated. We see especially that Michael doesn't sort of appreciate or care about anything that's being done for him. For example, he's starts talking about the war, World War II at the time, and he gets into a little argument with his older brother Sonny, and Sonny says if you like that so much, why don't you drop out of college and join the army? And then Michael just goes I did, and he's like, what? And he's like, yeah, I joined the Marines. And then Sonny's like, your father had to pull a lot of strings to get you into that college. We have plans for you to be successful, not to be in the business and all that. Basically making it so he doesn't have to follow his rest of his family's footsteps in a life of crime. And he just says I didn't ask for that. He's so dismissive and just doesn't care about all his family trying to, give him the best he possibly can get.
Risk their lives for their country.
Your country ain't your blood. You remember that.
I don't feel that way.
I don't feel that way. Well, if you don't feel like that, why don't you just quit college and go to join the army?
I did. I enlisted in the Marines.
Mikey, why didn't you come to us?
What do you mean?
I mean, Pop had to pull a lot of strings to get your deferment.
I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask for a deferment. I didn't want it.
What's wrong? Hey, come on, knock it off. Come on, hey.
Come on, Sonny. Punk. Sonny, sit. No, you go on, sit down.
And then eventually Vito gets home and everyone gets up to go greet their father, Vito, except for Michael. And we're just left with Michael alone with all his family gone in the room while everyone's all off in another room to greet his father. And then we fade to Michael as he is today, just sitting alone without his family, without his father or his brothers, and now with his sister hating him and all that. And that's how the film ends. And yeah, I just think it's one of the greatest, like, just like, whoa type of endings. Because it just wraps everything up so well. And you haven't seen it, unfortunately. So, but you'll love it when you do see the whole film. I guarantee it.
Yeah, no, I'll see it.
Yeah. We got to do a marathon
of
the first 2 films. We can skip the third one.
Well, yeah, that's what everyone says.
Yeah.
All right.
Next pick.
My next one's Fight Club.
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, I didn't even think of that when I was doing my list.
Yeah, so there's a lot of metaphors in this end scene that I can't really cover all of them because there's a lot of different interpretations of it, but it starts off, well, I guess I'm sort of going into the middle of the scene where the narrator's shooting himself in an attempt to get rid of Tyler, who we know is the same person as the narrator. He's just like this personification of parts of his personality. And this kind of him shooting himself shows that he's become a more like balanced person because of all those like behaviors and impulses not being separated by Tyler now. He's like one person, he's in control of himself now. And with the falling of the buildings, this has like multiple meanings that I can't touch on all of them, but there's like the literal thing of blowing them up to like have everyone start at the same level again. It's like ground zero. And he also says something earlier in the movie, like something like they advertised us like chasing cars and clothes and working jobs we hate so we can buy stuff we don't need. And with the buildings falling to the ground, it's like as if he's like finally at peace with that philosophy he had. And because initially he felt like the world owed him, and at the end he opens himself up to Marla, who was like kind of his girlfriend, kind of not. Like he never like fully committed to that. But he finally like opens himself up to her at the end, which he was never able to do.
You shot yourself? Yes, but it's okay. Marla, look at me. I'm really okay. Trust me. Everything's gonna be fine. You met me at a very strange time in my life. With your feet on the air, your head on the ground. Try this trick and spin it. Yeah. You ever collapse, but there's nothing in it, and you'll ask yourself.
And that really shows his like character arc, and that he's like at peace with whatever's gonna happen next. So yeah.
I remember first time I saw that, I was just like, whoa.
Oh yeah, my mind was blown. I was watching, I was like, what is happening?
Exactly. So much what is happening.
I also love the scene in the hotel room, but that's a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's great.
It's been too long since I last watched Fight Club. We got to watch that again soon.
It's great.
Yes. I wish I had more to add, but it's been so long since I've seen it. Oh man.
Yeah. I couldn't watch the him shooting himself in the mouth. Like that was.
Yeah.
And they do some kind of slow-mo thing too, where after he shoots his mouth is like jiggling around for the slow-mo, and like there's smoke coming out from the gun, and it's like bloody. Ugh. Yeah, it's bad.
Nasty.
I don't like it. But it's a good ending. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Oh man. Oh yeah, I wish I had more to add to that. It's just been too long since I've seen it. All right, was there anything else you had to add to it? No. All right, I guess moving on. This is one that I think there's a chance this might have been on your list. Some Like It Hot.
Oh, I thought about that, but I didn't think that was the best ending, to be honest.
Oh, See, I don't think it's like a great end, but it's just an ending that I was like, I love this ending.
Oh no,
You know
it's
what
like
I
a
mean?
happy ending. It's like
Yeah.
a like comedic ending. Yeah.
Mhm.
But
So
go.
yeah, so what's happening in this scene is our two characters who are jazz musicians who dressed up as women so they could be in an all-women jazz band because they couldn't find work as just normal jazz players, as men who were jazz players. And so they're on this boat by the end of it, and the one guy is like confessing to this woman that he's in love with, that, you know, he's like, oh, you can't love me, I'm such a horrible person, I lied about all this stuff. And then in front, the guy who's driving the boat is this dude who's in love with the other dude as a woman. And so while in the back, she's just like, oh, I don't care, I love you and all that. And they start kissing. And then in the front, the dude who he hasn't revealed yet that he's actually a man to the dude who thinks he's in love with the other main character. And he's trying to explain to him why they can't get married. And he's like, we can't get married. And he's like, oh, it's okay. He's like, I smoke all the time. And he's like, oh, that's okay. And he's like, I don't mind. And he's like, I can't have children. And he's like, oh, no, that's all right. I don't want them anyways. And then he finally takes off his wig and he's like, I'm a man. And he goes, nobody's perfect. And then that's what it ends on. He goes, well, nobody's perfect. And
You don't want me, sugar. I'm a liar and a phony, a saxophone player, one of those no-good nicks you keep running away from.
I know, every time.
Sugar, do yourself a favor. Go back to where the millionaires are. The sweet end of the lollipop, not the coleslaw in the face, the old socks, and the squeezed-out tube of toothpaste.
That's right, pour it on. Talk me out of it.
That's such a great end. He just pulls off the wig. I'm a man. Nobody's perfect. I love it. It's such a funny ending. And yeah, there's not really much to it. It's just a goofy little ending joke that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything you had to say about that?
I mean, I love the movie as a whole. I wouldn't think of this as like, obviously you already said it. It's not like the best ending, but I wouldn't even think of it as like a. I guess it's a good ending. I mean,
I just think it's
I don't know.
such
I have a
funny
hard time.
ending.
No, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think it's funny too. I just would never think of that as a. I don't know. I would just never think of it as a. But I love that
ending
movie
line.
a lot. Yeah,
It's
one of my
great.
favorites.
Yeah, very good. Older film, for those of you who don't know what it is. It's from 1959, I think. And yep, it's very good. It's got why can't I remember the leads' names? Should have wrote down.
Monroe,
Yeah, I know she's in it. I can't remember the two leads though. Oh, she is a lead.
I just wrote
but...
a montage thing on this.
Anyways, I should have put that in my notes. But it's very good, all around. Very, very funny. That ending line is iconic.
Jack LaMont.
All right.
And Tony Curtis and.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's super fun. I love the ending. It's not anything special. It's just really funny. And I love just that whole last moment of tearing off the wig. I'm a man. Yeah, it's great. And unless you have anything else to add to that, I think that wraps up Some Likes It Hot. Some like it hot.
By the way, you were peeking so much while you were laughing and yelling.
Oh no.
Like a lot.
Damn it,
I
should
think
I
you're
redo
just
it?
talking too loud. No, it's fine.
All right.
Okay. My last one is wait, you still have one more after this, right?
Yep.
Okay, so my last one is The Silence of the Lambs. So you'll be happy about that one.
So good. So good, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have initially thought of this as being in my top 5, but I just watched the scene again. I was like, yeah, this is great. I love every part of it. Like Clarice, she picks up the phone and it's so like nonchalant. Like it's just like, I think what is, I forget how she picks up the phone, but she picks up the phone so nonchalantly. And then we immediately get the voice of Lecter saying, well, Clarice, have the lamb stopped screaming? And it's like, that line is so perfect. Like, yeah. I don't think there's a better line. I love that line.
Starling.
Well, Clarice, Have the lambs stopped screaming?
Dr. Lecter.
Don't bother with the trace. I won't be on long enough.
Where are you, Dr. Lecter?
I have no plans to call on you, Clarice. The world's more interesting with you in it. So you take care now to extend me the same courtesy.
You know I can't make that promise.
I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. Bye.
Dr. Lecter. Dr. Lecter. Dr. Lecter. Dr. Lecter.
The
And-
performances are great too.
Yeah, it cuts back to her and she's so like just doesn't know what's going on, like she's scared in the moment. And we get this like pan from the brick wall from the left. It's almost like split in half on the screen where it's like brick wall and then her like she's kind of like sinking into the brick wall on the other side and she's like peering around it and it's this like pan across and then he speaks again and there's the line, "I'm having an old friend for dinner." And
Love it.
it's so close to the phrase "I'm having dinner with an old friend." And so like it's funny how like if you heard it at first you might you know
The double
mix
entendre.
it up with the other one and then it's like, no, wait a second, he's having an old friend for dinner.
Oh,
And he hangs up the phone and we cut to Clarice and she's saying like Dr. Lecter over and over again and we're like they're doing a dolly out and it adds to the idea that she has no idea what's going on or how to find him or anything. And then we cut to the two detectives trying to find Lecter and as they pass we see Lecter stand up and walk off on his way to dinner.
Dinner. Oh
Yeah.
man.
It's so good. I love
It's
it.
extremely good. I love that film, as you know. I can't believe that I didn't even think of that for my list.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's such a creepy ending with a great ending line.
Yeah, I love how when he picks up the phone and says, you know, the whole like the lamb stopped screaming.
Yeah.
I like the framing of that shot. They have a side profile shot of him picking up the phone and there's the fly on his forehead.
There's so many amazing just cinematography in that film.
Yeah.
The cinematography is great.
It's so good.
Extremely.
I think
extremely.
that the shot of him picking up the phone and the shot of the pull out, the dolly out of her just having the phone up their ear and he's hung up the phone and she's just like doesn't know what to do. It's just kind of struck by that and just the dolly out of that, like it's perfect.
Oh, and for anyone who doesn't know what a dolly out is, that's when the camera's physically moving away from the subject.
Right. I should say.
Yeah, and a dolly in would be when the camera's physically moving towards the subject.
And I should pan is, you know, from left to right or right to left or up, you know, vertically up and down. And then
tilt.
actually panning down up the camera, you know, like that. And then the dolly is actually moving the camera, you know. So
yeah. As opposed to a zoom where you just zooming in with
sorry,
the lens.
that's the thing. The zoom is very different from the dolly.
Yeah. Anyways, that's your film school for today, guys. So
you know, I'm realizing how much more I like dollies than zooms.
Really? I'm a zoom guy. Maybe that's probably because I like Kubrick.
Yeah, you know what? I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah. I used to I like I'm definitely a zoom
that
person.
pains me. I don't like zooms.
I
like zooms. I don't like the extreme zooms.
I think zooms can be done very, very badly. I think it's much easier to do a bad zoom than a bad
I
dolly.
don't like them, actually.
Yeah, because I'll admit, until I got into Kubrick, I was also against zooms very much.
You know what? I think I like slight zooms. I don't like
slight zooms. Yeah, I don't like snap zooms as much, except for Tarantino. Tarantino's the exception. His snap zooms are great. He knows how to use them very well. He actually does a lot of stuff very well that I don't like. But that's a tangent for another time.
Yeah, all right,
But-
let's stop talking about it.
Yeah. All right. So my final pick. This film is slowly becoming one of my favorites, mainly for the performances. There Will Be Blood from 2007. The final scene, it comes with the character Eli is trying to sell a tract of land to Daniel for out of desperation because he really needs the money. And this is some of the most well acted and written dialogue and then monologue in anything I've ever seen, like by a long shot. Paul Dano and Daniel Day-Lewis are amazing together. There's like some of the amazing lines is when Daniel Day-Lewis is just berating him and he says, "You're an afterbirth, Eli. You slithered out of your mother's filth. You should have been put in a glass jar on the mantelpiece." And it's like, and he's delivering it with so much vitriol, and it's so well done. And then even when the lines get goofy, Daniel Day-Lewis is just so good that he makes "I drink your milkshake" the most threatening line you've ever heard in your entire life, especially in context. And they just hold on this when he's doing this back and forth and saying all these horrible things to him, and Paul Dano's character is just breaking down completely into tears. They're just on this like medium shot. You know, you'd expect this to be like cutting back and forth with close-ups, but they just hold on this medium shot and just let the whole thing play out like that until Daniel Day-Lewis like picks him up and throws him on the ground. Then they finally cut to another shot. But it just makes it feel so much more like you're just sitting there watching it, as opposed to watching a representation of it, because you're sitting about where you'd be sitting if you were actually there watching this unfold. And it could have gotten so goofy, especially when Dano's on the floor and this is taking place in the private bowling alley of Daniel Day-Lewis's character. And after he throws him on the ground, Daniel Day-Lewis starts throwing bowling balls at him. And it could have easily turned so goofy if these actors weren't so freaking good at what they do. Because he's like screaming at him, throwing bowling balls, saying goofy stuff like "I drink your milkshake," but it's terrifying.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up!
Don't bully me, Daniel!
Did you think your song and dance and your superstition would help you, Eli? I am the third revelation. I am who the Lord has chosen. Because I'm smarter than you. I'm older.
I'm your old friend, Daniel!
I'm not a false prophet.
Help me,
You
please!
sniveling boy. I am the third revelation. I am the third revelation. I told you I would eat you.
We're family.
I told
And then he major spoiler alert for if anyone doesn't want this ruined. Daniel Day-Lewis then bashes Paul Dano's head in with a bowling pin. And it's very gory and very bloody. And then his butler just shows up, and Daniel Day-Lewis is just sitting on the floor with Paul Dano's smashed head and blood everywhere. And he's just sitting there, and then the butler shows up. And I think he says something like, "Cancel my appointments," or something like that. And then it just ends. And
Mr. Daniel? I'm finished.
that scene has influenced my writing for my feature film so much. Whenever there's an intense scene, like that's what I'm going for. I'm like, I need something that intense. And I probably fail, but that's what I go for in my writing for intense scenes. I love it. It's another film, Maggie. Wait, you haven't seen There Will Be Blood, right? You have to. And I'm sorry I just told you the ending scene, but it's so good. We'll have to watch that sometime too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing performances. Good, like excellently directed. It's just that the performances steal the show from the directing in that final scene because both actors are so freaking good.
I can already see my dad's disappointment. he's gonna see. You haven't seen The Godfather. You haven't seen There Will Be Blood.
Oh well. But yeah, great. That's my final pick. I love it. It's definitely one of my favorite just scenes in general. The only scene that I can think of that tops it for me personally is the scene where they're in like Hal's mainframe in 2001. I can't say any more about that because that's also kind of a spoiler, but that scene's probably my second favorite scene of all in any movie. And does that wrap it up?
Yeah, I don't think I did mine in any particular order. I also don't think this is definitely, again, not concrete. Like, there's no
Very
way. If I had to rank them, I would say Dark Knight Rises, Inception.
Oh boy.
Silence of the Lambs, Psycho, Fight Club.
If I had to rank mine, 2001's up there because I have to put it up there. For, like I said, just from an aesthetic standpoint. Then I'd have to follow that up with The Godfather Part 2 because I think it approaches that same use of purely filmic techniques as opposed to literary techniques. Then I'd put There Will Be Blood, then The Godfather, and then what's it called? It just popped out of my head. Some Like It Hot. That'd be the bottom on my list. But yeah, so that's how I'd rank it if I had to. But that might be subject to change, except for the first two. I think I'm pretty solid on my top two being 2001 followed by Part 2 of The Godfather. Yeah. All right, does that wrap up our episode then this time? We got to watch WandaVision.
I know. I was literally just about to say, I might. This is the finale, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, season finale of WandaVision is out.
I got a lot
If you
of stuff
still
to
haven't
wrap up.
watched that show, you have to watch it. It's
Yes.
I
Give it a
can't
big watch.
praise it enough. It's so good.
Very, very good.
You know what? I don't think I sent it to you, but I saw some article last night where they were picking apart all the different decades and how they incorporated all the shows they paid homage to. And their attention to detail, that's what they focused on in this article, because like from the curtains, from like the middle, Malcolm in the Middle, to like the text the font that they used, to like the striped pillows that they used for the Modern Family couch, the different stairways, like the cabinetry. It's just like there's so much attention to detail in the show. It's insane.
Yeah. You haven't sent me that. You'll have to though.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. They really talked about almost everything, so
it sounds pretty sick.
Yeah. It's definitely check out the show. It's so good.
Very good. Just like our podcast. Very good. Hopefully. All right, does that wrap it up for this week?
Yep.
All right, let's head into the outro then.
Thanks for listening to our podcast, Directors on Tap.
As always, you can check out our Instagram and Twitter pages at Directors on Tap to stay up to date with new episodes and get some behind the scenes content.
Join us next week for more film talk.